miles on these vehicles. Come see them today. Randy Marion Chevrolet in Statesville.
The following is a paid program and does not necessarily reflect the views of WSIC.
Hello and welcome to North Main Financial Show. I'm Joshua Dobi. Welcome to this hour where we're giving attention to all things financial and economic here, talking about the kinds of things that may be hitting your radar screen, looking at those kinds of things that when we're giving attention to financial, lots of noise out there right now, lots of news with regards to what's happening in the economic and financial universe. We want to make sure that as you're doing that we're giving you good information here. But as we're talking about specific investments and we're looking at specific things here, that nothing that we're talking about is intended as a specific recommendation for you. Meaning that even though we're giving attention to these kinds of things, we're going to talk about strategies, going to be looking at companies here today, lots of news out there hitting the headlines, that nothing, again, that we're talking about here is intended as a specific recommendation for you. We strongly, strongly recommend that you reach out to your tax advisor, to your financial advisor, or if you'd like to reach out to us, North Main Financial Group, love to hear from you, love to chat about your particular financial situation, see if there are ways in which we might be able to be helpful to you. Online, you can find us at northmainfinancial.com. That's north like the direction, main like the street, financial.com. We have a contact page on there. Leave us a phone number, address, email address, and let us know the most preferred and desirable ways for us to contact you, again, at northmainfinancial.com. Well, let's get into it here on Dollars and Cents. We're talking about the headline kinds of things. We sometimes call this the What's Hot segment. I don't know. I think the whole thing's hot right now. There's a lot happening here. We're getting into the year end when we're looking at things that are hitting our headlines. And certainly there's been a lot of noise here after the election. We knew that was going to be the case. All kinds of things postulated in terms of what may or may not happen. We have our opinions, we know, just like you do, but they're just that. Opinions. We're not there yet. We got to kind of see what's going to happen, and certainly we're keeping those things on our radar screen. But let's go ahead and get into it. One of the big ones that's out there, certainly hitting headlines in the economic universe here on Dollars and Cents, has to do with the merger that didn't come about. Meaning, and I know they were talking about this also on Good Morning LKN, which, by the way, if you haven't taken a listen to Good Morning LKN, Monday to Friday, 7 to 9, here on WSIC, and you don't have to be within shot of the radio signal. Go ahead and get that app. Get on the Apple Store, get on the Google Store, download that WSIC app. I use it all the time when I travel. It's so nice. You can listen to them no matter where you are. So I know they were talking about it on Good Morning LKN here a couple of days ago. But Kroger and Albertsons, two big grocery store chains. And Kroger, publicly traded company here in the U.S., ticker symbol Kelly Roger, KR, not a recommendation to buy, sell, or hold the stock, but $25 billion was the anticipated merger buyout between the two of them. So we're talking about a huge kind of merger here. And for antitrust reasons, not going to go through. And so you say, okay, what is antitrust? Well, antitrust, and I'm not legal. I'm not an attorney, so I'm going to say that. We've got attorneys on here. The chief's probably around the corner here. He could probably come in here and speak to the legal aspect of things, but so I'm not an attorney. But when we're looking at antitrust-related kinds of things, generally speaking, and I have to say it this way, because there is no specific line in the sand or dollar amount or concentration of business that is specifically noted as far as what is antitrust and what is not. So you say, what is antitrust? Well, antitrust, generally speaking, are issues that have to do with concentrations within certain lines of business or certain industries. Now, I'm going to put it in real simple terms because that's the kind of way, that's the way that I think, certainly. Antitrust has to do with when one company has too much power. That's really what it is. When you look at it, one company that has too much power in terms of being able to set pricing, so getting close to what we sometimes call a monopoly or a monopolistic way of doing things, meaning that they have way too much of the power as determined by a board with the SEC, that they have too much power in terms of being able to set pricing and are, let's say, not kind to competition. Now, you may say, well, isn't that the idea of business? Aren't you supposed to be able to beat your competitors? Yes, but not too much. at least according to the SEC. And I'm not saying that antitrust or monopoly rules are good or bad. I'm not saying that at all. But it is true that when it comes to antitrust or concerns about concentrations with a particular company, if mergers happen, meaning that they would have too much say, stifling to competition, sometimes is the phrase that is used, that's somewhat of an arbitrary argument. It really is, because what's too much? I mean, I'll say it this way, and this is not to beat up on somebody else or say whataboutism kind of thing, but when we're looking at things like Google, for example, Google dominates the search industry, absolutely dominates it. And actually, the European Union has even come out and said, well, they dominate it too much. And even the SEC on this end of things here in this country has been saying, yeah, they might dominate it too much. We're going to take a look at that through the Department of Justice. Well, when we're looking at those kinds of things and we're saying, what's too much? Well, what's the percentage? Is it 50%, 51%, 75%, 90%, 99%? I mean, what is too much? And it's different for different industries. So it's a very big challenge. And I'm spending some time on this point because it's not just true in this now broken up merger between Kroger and Albertsons, but it's also true for a number of different industries. And they have different numbers associated with them. Meaning in some spaces, when you have, let's say, more competition, getting more than 10% of that business is considered to be stifling sometimes. And in other industries where maybe there aren't as many players, it may be more like 70% or 90%. And that, again, makes it very, very difficult for companies to understand what may be too much. So in this Kroger-Albertsons deal, again, the primary reason why it was broken up by the Department of Justice is they perceived, I have to say it that way, that they perceived that there was going to be too much of a concentration of power in the combined entity of Kroger and Albertsons. So when we're looking at that kind of thing and we're saying, okay, what does that mean for business? Does that mean that other players are going to come into the mix here? Could be true. Could find other buyers, could find other folks who maybe can come in and can skate by that concentration aspect, or what is perceived to be monopolistic or, let's say, stifling to competition is sometimes that phrase that's used. But what does that mean in terms of whether it's a good idea to be invested in them? Well, that's really up to you. Because there are some, there's even a particular strategy that's out there that's called arbitrage. And arbitrage is essentially the ability or using the ability of buying companies that are part of merger and acquisition activity in order to profit from the spread, meaning the likelihood of whether it's going to happen, because there's a difference or there's a spread between the time when the deal is announced and when it actually happens. And so there are longs and shorts, those who are thinking it's going to happen or not going to happen, who make pretty sizable bets on both sides of that kind of thing. This particular instance with Kroger and Albertsons didn't happen. And the market, I would say by means of what the stock price did, actually liked that idea that it wasn't going to go through. It doesn't always happen that way. So that's the kind of thing that you want to be very mindful of whenever you're looking at merger and acquisition activity. Sometimes folks say, well, I'm going to buy this stock because I think that it's going to be bought out. Well, it might be. We don't know that unless you have insider information, and then legally, you shouldn't be trading on insider information. But then above and beyond that, even if you do think it's a likely buyout candidate, it doesn't necessarily mean that whoever attempts to buy them, that it's going to go through. And that's really what we're seeing here. So I'm spending a little bit of time on this. Yes, it's a little bit academic. Yes, it's a little bit 101 when we're looking at this Kroger-Albertsons deal. But it does spill over into literally every sector and with all kinds of merger and acquisition activity. So appreciate you letting me get into it there, because it's the kind of thing you want to pay attention to. Folks are making those arguments all the time. This is a reason to buy. This is a reason to sell. It may or may not be. Always pertinent, though, to be able to keep that kind of thing in mind. Friends, thanks so much for hanging with us. Going to hear from our sponsors coming back here on Dollars and Cents.
Keep it right here. Dollars and Cents with certified financial planner Joshua Dobi. We'll return shortly on 105.9, 100.7 WSIC.
Oh, look at, man.
Oh boy, what a difference
Business
a day
is
makes.
good.
The cold
Yes,
is
sir.
back again. The dry weather
I
is back
saw
too.
that right on the
Plenty of
shoulder there.
sunshine, high temperatures in the
Yeah.
upper 40s. Still
I
a good
like
breeze
it.
for the
That
afternoon.
looks sharp.
Under a clear
Looks
sky, we'll
sharp.
go
Be
back
well.
down into the upper 20s to near 30 again overnight and get into the low 50s for our Friday with a partly cloudy sky. We'll stay chilly and dry through Saturday, tracking our next chance for rain again by Sunday. That's your forecast from the WSIC Weather Center. I'm meteorologist Chase Myers.
The WSIC app is available now wherever you get your apps, featuring local deals from great local businesses like Serenity Now Massage Therapy.
Here is your WSIC community calendar. Embrace the magic of the season at a classic Christmas in Mooresville on Friday from 5 to 9 p.m. in the heart of downtown. Traditional holiday activities such as ice skating, horse-drawn wagon rides, Santa visits, food vendors, warm beverages, and carolers are all part of the festivities. A classic Christmas in Mooresville promises a nostalgic and heartwarming experience for the whole family this Friday in downtown. Join the Gingerbread House Workshop this Saturday in downtown Statesville. Fun Christmas activities for kids take place at 10:30 a.m., 11:15, and noon at the Watering Hole on West Broad Street. All supplies are provided and fun for all ages. Registration is required. Visit Gingerbread Workshop for Kids on Facebook for details. The Town of Troutman Jingle Run 5K takes place on Sunday. The race will run through the Town of Troutman starting at the Town Hall. Register at runsignup.com and we will see you Sunday in Troutman for the Jingle Run 5K. Trivia is back at Micaiah's in Mooresville on Tuesday, December 17th. Join me, Patrick Reynolds, host of the Home Ad Show, and Joe Berg, host of the Scoreboard, as we test your trivia knowledge with a fun game and prizes for the winners. Call your friends, form your team, or play solo. We'll see you at Micaiah's in Mooresville on Tuesday, December 17th for trivia with the WSIC
We're gonna get this straight through.
Speedway Christmas at Charlotte Motor Speedway is happening now through Sunday,
Just thinking on
January
something
5th.
else.
The light show features more than 5 million lights synchronized to music on a 4-mile course through the oval, pit road, and infield. Plus drive-in movies on the gigantic Speedway TV, as well as a festive Christmas village. Speedway Christmas tickets and information are available at charlottemotorspeedway.com. To keep up with all the events happening around the community and much more, including amazing local deals, download the WSIC News app today.
Call now to speak with certified financial planner Joshua Dobi at 844-STUDIO-4. It's dollars and cents on 105.9 100.7 WSIC.
Hello and welcome back to Dollars and Cents presented by North Main Financial. I'm your host, Joshua Dobi. Thank you so much for hanging with us here. Second quarter of today's show, Football Reference. It's football season, folks. We're going to talk football. And when it's not football season, we talk about football season coming up. We even do a countdown on the days. I can't imagine that producer Reese or producer Bill really like it when I talk about literally how many days it is to football season, even when it's not football season. But I gotta speak to our Panthers a little bit here. I really do. And okay, I look at it, I got a couple of losses in a row here. But I'll tell you what, we're a different team. I know I'm a glass half full kind of guy when it comes to our Panthers. I'm a homer. I'll tell you that in advance. That's just the way I'm built. But the last couple of producer Reese is agreeing with me here. He's giving me fist pumps in the air, even though you can't see him here directly on the socials. That he's with me on this. I'm feeling better about our Panthers. I am feeling better. I like how we're playing. We're putting some points on the board. I think Bryce Young's getting a little bit comfortable now, kind of getting into the rhythm here a little bit. We gave the Chiefs a run for their money. Lost by 3 to them here a couple of weeks ago. I'm a believer. I'm not getting off this bus. You kidding me? I've ridden it this long. I'm definitely not getting off at this point. Anyhow, thanks for hanging with us here. Second quarter of today's show. We were talking. We got a little bit academic, little 101 there in the first quarter of things. Talking about Kroger and Albertsons, the merger, big merger possibility that was out there, $25 billion. That is not going to happen, at least in its current form. And that was a big announcement. And the primary reasons for that being antitrust or monopolistic concerns, concerned that the merged entity would have too much power within the grocery store business. And, when you're looking at the grocery store business, already a very, very interesting industry. Obviously touches just about everybody in some way, shape, or form. We're all going to the grocery store to buy various things often. And so when we're looking at the impact in terms of monthly budget kinds of things, or we're looking at it in terms of what it means for the consumer, what they're buying, the argument was made that it would be stifling to competition. I said that a couple of times. That is often a phrase that's used, but there aren't numbers that are given to that. That's really the point that I was raising. There is no objective table that's out there that I've ever seen that says, well, if you get over this percentage of concentration in a single company, in a single industry, then that's considered to be stifling, or that's considered to be monopolistic, or and I have to say monopolistic because true monopoly is 100%. And if we're talking about something less than 100%, then we're really not talking about, you guessed it, monopoly. So you can tell I have a little bit of a sideways glance when it comes to those kinds of things, only because it's just not a very objective process, but more of a subjective process. Now, all right, let's keep going here. I'm going to get into something that I know is much more objective, and I would say is probably monopolistic in terms of sentiment on this. And yes, I'm speaking for you, the listening audience here, on dollars and cents. But I would dare to say that perhaps everybody is going to agree with me in terms of what I'm going to say next. I'm looking at Sam's Club. Sam's Club, the warehouse buying retail store, but the arm, if you will, of Walmart. Walmart, publicly traded company, ticker symbol William, Mary, Tom. Not a recommendation to buy, sell, or hold Walmart. But Sam's Club is offering. Stay with me here. You'll understand why I think that literally every single person will agree with me that this is a wonderful idea. That Sam's Club is offering free holiday-themed hot dogs, including one topped with. Hold on, we're a little bit after Thanksgiving, I know, but a hot dog topped with pumpkin pie. I know. I mean, you're thinking the same thing I am. Who wouldn't want something like that? I mean, I'm in agreement with you. First of all, I don't think I've ever met a hot dog that I didn't like, and I have not had one. I will admit that that includes a topping made out of pumpkin, but I am obviously going to be one that is going to be trying it. Now let's first talk about the name of these hot. These are holodogs. Yeah, you heard me say that correctly. Holodogs, not hot dogs, but holodogs, because we're talking about holiday themed hot dogs again that Sam's Club is offering, and here are a couple of the varietals that you can have there. No, we're not talking about wine here. We're talking about hot dogs, right? You can get the Club Mashup, which is a hot dog topped with mashed potatoes and Christmas cookies. Now that was a little hard for me. Now, I'm not saying I wouldn't try it. I'm not saying I wouldn't be one of the ones that would step up and try that. But when I saw mashed potatoes and Christmas cookies, I love both of those things separately. I have never had those things together, and certainly not on the top of a hot dog. That was a little bit interesting. Then there's Frankly Both, which again is, as I mentioned here just a few moments ago, topped with pumpkin pie and candy canes. Now, producer Reese, I mean, I'm not seeing very many positive vibes coming from you here when I'm saying these, and that's a little bit disturbing. Now, then the third one, Seasons Meetings. Yeah, watch where I'm going here. Right, see, it's a hot dog topped with turkey and prime rib. Now, that's just, I mean, that's why. So, producer Reese, you're on board with this. Yeah, I mean, a hot dog topped with turkey and prime rib. That's something I could put all together. You put a little spicy mustard on the whole thing, and I think I might even have one in each hand. Are you kidding me right now? Holodogs? I mean, that's a reason for the holiday in and of itself. Not getting into this traditional stuff with turkey and ham and stuff like holodogs from Sam's Club. There is no limit to what we will try as the consuming public. We just put stuff out there, and periodically you're going to bump into something that, well, that one was a little bit unusual, but that was very good. But I have to try them now. I couldn't do mashed potatoes and Christmas cookies in my head. That's a little bit of a strange one. But like I said, I'll be the first one in line. I'll try it. I mean, I don't want to be closed-minded to the possibilities there. Maybe that whole sweet, salty, sweet, savory combination along with the hot dog there and Christmas cookies. I mean, I'd at least give it a shot. All right, let's keep going here. We're going to get a little bit academic here for a moment, only because it was announced here yesterday. Does impact all of us. Got to mention it here because our end of the pond is meeting next week. ECB, European Central Bank, met this week, cut rates by another quarter of a point. Third straight meeting where they cut rates there for the European Union member banks. Widely expected. No surprise on that end of things. But happened this week. Now, next week, that's where I was saying we got this end of the pond that's going to be meeting. So Federal Reserve Board of Governors meeting next week, announcement next week, Wednesday the 18th, I want to say that it is, which Wednesday is the 18th, but I believe that's going to be the announcement time as well. Widely expected that the Federal Reserve is going to cut interest rates, the overnight lending rate to member banks. You've heard me talk about that a lot. They're widely expected they're going to be cutting rates again by a quarter of a percentage point. Now, we've talked a lot here on Dollars and Cents about what that means. Now, there's not a one-to-one correlation that mortgage rates are going to fall by a quarter point, or that auto loans are going to fall by a quarter point, or that lines of credit are going to fall by a quarter point. You've heard me say that. This is not a one-to-one correlation. Remember, when we're talking about the Federal Reserve cutting interest rates, what that means is the rate that the Federal Reserve charges to member banks, right? Members of the FDIC, of the Federal Depository Insurance Corporation, those who are part of the Federal Reserve, who receive money or borrow money from the Federal Reserve in order to lend it out to the public. So there's a two-step process. They take money from the Federal Reserve if they want. They don't have to do that, but they take money from the Federal Reserve and then they lend it out to the public for the various auto loans, mortgage loans, and lines of credit, and all kinds of capital expense loans, etc. So when we're looking at that kind of thing, again, there's not a one-to-one correlation that just because it's a quarter point reduction in terms of what the Federal Reserve is charging member banks, that's automatically all passed through to us, which is the borrowing public. Very important to keep that kind of thing in mind. Is it sometimes closely correlated? Yes. Yeah, absolutely. It's out there. And that very likely is what's going to be happening next week as the Federal Reserve, here on this end of things, gets together and, as is widely anticipated by the market, is going to be cutting rates by a quarter of a point again. But it's not one-to-one. So I just want to caution against that. Had a couple of conversations with that this morning as part of my meetings in talking with folks. Okay, do we look at refinancing possibilities? Maybe this might be a time to consider it for you, but you want to make sure that there's a large enough spread between what you're paying currently on the interest rate and what the reduction possibility is. Because in the refinancing process, there's always an expense involved with it. So you want to make sure that there's enough of a spread between the interest rate that you're paying currently and the interest rate that you're going to be paying after refinancing, and that you're going to be keeping that loan, whatever it may be for, whether it's for a private residence, commercial property, whatever it may be, that you're going to be keeping that loan for a long enough time to experience the financial benefit. That's very, very important. You may be looking at it and say, well, my mortgage payment's going to go down by fill in the blank dollars right away. And that's true. But there's an expense for the refinancing process as well. So you're going to need to recoup that expense before you get back to basically break even or zero. So that you need to have some measure of time, arbitrary of course, different for everybody, but some measure of time after that in order to reap the financial reward for refinancing. So very, very important to keep that kind of thing in mind. Lots of conversations about that right now, especially folks who have mortgages in the 7s and they're looking at refinancing possibilities in the 6s. So we're having a lot of conversation about that with folks right now who have those higher rate mortgages, who bought, say, over the course of the last year or 18 months. Is this a good time to refinance? Maybe. But I'm bringing that up in terms of what the Federal Reserve is widely expected to do next week, because even though the markets are largely reflecting that now, meaning the mortgage markets are largely reflecting that quarter point reduction next week, there could be some additional adjustments that happen as the Federal Reserve actually makes that happen. So just kind of keep that on your radar screen. I know it's not the kind of thing that maybe is going to be top of mind with the holiday parties that I know are present for all of you right now, or with entertaining family and all that good kind of stuff. That's much more important. But if you happen to take a sideways glance at it, or if it's something that's pertinent to you and your financial situation, definitely kind of keep that kind of thing in mind when you're looking at what's going to be happening here over the next couple of weeks. All right, let's get one more quick one in right here before we get into to the split here at the halfway point. All right, when we're looking at Disney, we're going to look at them very, very quickly here. Disney announced an increase in their dividend. I was surprised by this. Disney, ticker symbol David, Indian, Sam, DIS, not a recommendation to buy, sell, or hold Disney. Very, very interesting that they increased their dividend, because that tends to be with a company as mature as Disney, that's going to be a semi-permanent kind of thing. They don't like to reduce that. They must be feeling pretty good about cash flow. The total increase was 33%. That's a large increase for a company as big as Disney is. So it's very, very interesting to see that. They're very confident in terms of some of the reports we've read recently about what they're expecting in their theme parks and cruise ships next year. Big stuff. We're going to be watching Disney coming into to 2025. All right, going to take a break here as we hear from our sponsors. Hold tight here on Dollars and Cents.
There's more of Dollars and Cents with certified financial planner Joshua Dobi on the way from 105.9 100.7 WSIC.
Oh boy, what a difference a day makes. The cold is back again. The dry weather is back too. Plenty of sunshine, high temperatures in the upper 40s, still with a bit of a breeze for the afternoon. Under a clear sky, we'll go back down into the upper 20s to near 30 again overnight. And get into the low 50s for our Friday with a partly cloudy sky. We'll stay chilly and dry through Saturday, tracking our next chance for rain again by Sunday. That's your forecast from the WSIC Weather Center. I'm meteorologist Chase Myers.
Harrison's is the home of Work, Western, and Wow! We're the Southeast leader in Carhartt, and nobody has more in-stock work boots. The store is filled with Ariat, Cinch, Wrangler, and more. Get great clothing and footwear for the whole family at Harrison's. Find us on Norman Station Boulevard in Mooresville.
Welcome home to the feeling of Horn Heating and Air Conditioning is family-owned and operated and understands the meaning of community. We treat you like family because you are family. Visit hornhvac.com.
Prioritizing your health is one of the best ways to take care of yourself. From routine visits to the joys of pregnancy to the illnesses that stop you in your tracks, Iredell Health System will be by your side. Learn more at iredellhealth.org.
This is Fred Lowry at Lowry Drug. We now have our own brand of full-spectrum hemp extract, also known as CBD oil. I personally manage this product as it was grown on my farm here in Iredell County. It was then processed and bottled here in Statesville. This is a true herbal extract with all the medicinal components intact. A product you can trust to be authentic. And since there is no wholesaler, it's at a price you can afford. Try it at Lowry Drug on Hartness Road in Statesville.
Hi, this is Bob McIntosh with the McIntosh Law Firm in Davidson. Since 1997, we have been committed to providing our clients with competent, caring, and experienced legal services. Learn more at McIntoshLawFirm.com.
The best talk all day long.
WSIC.
Local starts here.
This is a Bloomberg Money Minute. Investors are mulling over new reports showing weekly jobless claims hit a 2-month high last week, and producer prices for November came in hotter than expected, mostly due to egg prices. Stocks today are down between 0.4% and 0.5%. Novo Nordisk is receiving approval from the European Union to market its diabetes drug Ozempic, as also being helpful in lowering the risk of conditions related to kidney disease in adults with type 2 diabetes. Data from a recent study showed the drug cuts the risk by 24%. A U.S. decision on the label expansion is expected sometime early next year. Goodyear is hoping to inspire the next generation of car enthusiasts. The tire and automotive company is jumping into the toy market and offering a range of pretend play items for kids to explore cars, like tire changing kits, mechanic tool sets, and car care accessories. I'm Nancy Lyons, Bloomberg Radio.
Home of the best talk.
WSIC. Local starts here.
We're back now with more of Dollars and Cents with your host, certified financial planner, Joshua Dobi, on 105.9 100.7 WSIC.
Hello and welcome back to Dollars and Cents, presented by North Main Financial. I'm your host, Joshua Dobi. Thank you so much for hanging with us here to the second half football reference of today's show. Appreciate so much you hanging with us here on Dollars and Cents as we're talking about all things economic and financial. And yeah, we're bringing in some other things too. You know it. We're talking food. We're talking football. And I have another phrase, but I'm not going to get into it right now. But we're talking about some things that hopefully bring a smile to your face as well, and hopefully a little bit holiday themed, right? We're getting to that time of the year. We are post-Halloween, post-Thanksgiving, on the sprint to the Christmas season. And we were talking about from Sam's Club there. Producer Reese and I were giving some attention to it here during the break, where we were talking about there in the second segment about Sam's Club. Sam's Club owned by Walmart, publicly traded company. Walter, Mary, Tom, not a recommendation to buy, sell, or hold the stock. That we are talking about their holodogs. Now, I'm not making this up. Holodogs. Yes, these are hot dogs with various holiday themes associated with them. And I'll tell you, I mean, like I said, I was excited when I heard that. And then I saw some of the combination. I'm like, you know what? I'll try it once, but I don't know if I'm going to try it more than once. I mean, mashed potatoes and crushed Christmas cookies. On a hot dog. Okay. I mean, I'll try it once, but that didn't seem exciting. Now that one with turkey and hot dog with turkey and prime rib, yeah, okay. Put all the meats together. I definitely might be able to do that with a little spicy mustard on top of it. I probably could do that. And you're saying, what does this have to do with anything financial? Well, it's a publicly traded company. It's news. We want to make sure that you're familiar with it, and it had some holiday theme. associated with it as well. All right, we're talking about Disney, the increase in the dividend that they announced there. Again, when it comes to increasing dividends, especially with companies as old and mature as Disney is, it's the kind of thing where they're very likely very confident they're going to be able to maintain it. What jumped out to me, yes, they were increasing their dividend, but was by how much? 33%. It's not a big dividend company, meaning it's not a high dividend company already, but in terms of the increase over what it was, about exactly a third more than what it was. That's impressive. That's a significant move in a short amount of time. Company as big as Disney, you're talking about billions of dollars in additional dividend commitments on an annual basis. That's a big, big deal. So very positive, I thought, for Disney. Again, not a recommendation to buy, sell, or hold the stock. Ticker symbol David, Indian Sam. And again, not a recommendation to buy, sell, or hold them. All right, let's continue on some stock news here. This one just came out yesterday. Quarterly earnings for Adobe. No, that's no relationship to me, but it's Adobe. If you have opened a PDF document, then you have used Adobe in some way, shape, or form, and just about everybody I know has in some way used or has opened and a PDF document. That software system is, and many other software systems are developed and maintained by Adobe. Came out with quarterly earnings, ticker symbol Alpha David Bravo Evergreen, and they came out and they missed. Really did, at least in terms of the expectations for the marketplace. Stock down about 12% today, as of the time of this live recording, or as of the time of this, live broadcast, or as of the time of this recording. So when we're looking at performance-wise, definitely not what was anticipated by the market, but they weren't doing all that great going into it. Year-to-date return, very different than other parts of the market, but you hear me talk about this in previous shows. Not everybody's doing well this year. They were down about 7%. Before this dip today, and now you add the 12% to it, you're looking at 19 to 20% down this year in 2024 for Adobe stock. So very, very interesting. Arguably a tech company or tech-related company, large tech-related company, very well established, hasn't done as well this year. So when you come out with the quarterly earnings that missed the market expectations, we've been seeing that, though. Kind of interesting, sidebar, but definitely related, that we've been seeing that from Adobe here for the last several years, where it seems like every year they have one quarter where they just plain miss it. They're just off the table. They just completely miss what the market is expecting from them, and the stock gets hammered pretty hard. We've seen that now here several times over the last several years. Kind of an interesting sort of thing, not really good from a management standpoint, that you have more of a boom-bust kind of scenario, but certainly has seemed to be the case for Adobe here. So anyhow, this was the quarter this year that they really didn't do well. The stock really took a hammer today. It's going to be interesting to see how they recover, and are they able to jump onto this AI wave, meaning that so many things associated with AI right now that are riding high. And at least at this point, Adobe has not been able to do it. All right, let's keep going. YouTube. I mean, I can't imagine anybody who's listening to us right now here on Dollars and Cents on WSIC. Can't imagine that anybody is not familiar with YouTube. Maybe you aren't. YouTube, online video service. You can go on there and watch videos of, I think, pretty much anything. I don't know how many videos are on YouTube. Hundreds of billions. I have no idea. I mean, there's so pretty much anything. You just type something into the YouTube search engine there. You know, if you want to learn how to cross stitch or you want to learn how to fly a 747, I'm pretty sure you could find videos, a whole bunch of them on how to do both on there. Anyhow, YouTube has a segment called YouTube TV. YouTube TV is an online streaming television source, meaning that it is a streaming service, and you can subscribe to them. What was notable to me, and the reason why it hit my radar screen, by the way, YouTube, owned by Google, publicly traded company, the C shares, C is in cat shares, ticker symbol GOOG, Green, Oscar, Green. The A shares, Green, Oscar, Green, Larry, GOOGL, that are out there for buying in the buying publicly traded company. Not a recommendation to buy, sell, or hold Google stock. But what hit my radar screen relative to YouTube TV, price is going up. And it's notable. It's notable. The base package was $73 approximately. It is now going to $83 effective next year or here in a couple of months. I mean, that's notable. You're talking about 15% price increase all at once. I thought that was a big jump. And I get it. I mean, the costs of streaming services, the cost of streaming, the cost of buying content, accessing content. On YouTube TV, you also get live television, so you get sporting events and all of it. I mean, I understand it. I understand the metric and I understand the industry. I just thought that was quite a large price increase announcement all at once. Even in those kinds of instances, what we sometimes see is that providers or the end users will often stair-step. I mean, they'll do a couple of raises instead of doing it all at once. I guess the folks at YouTube TV say, yeah, we're going to do this all at once. And I'm sure they're hoping not going to be a huge amount of negative impact to their subscriber base. It'll be interesting to see. The whole world of entertainment consumption has been in an evolution now, I feel like, for about the past 10 years. And there are different sides of thought on this, and certainly, if you talk to the more traditional, let's call them cable subscribers, you talk to folks who have never had cable service and only stream, or the folks who only take in entertainment through their smartphones and what services they utilize. I mean, let me say it this way, it's much more fragmented than it has been during the course of my lifetime. I mean, when I was growing up, it was rabbit ears on the top of a television, and you hoped that you could get 3 stations in the over-the-air signal. That was about it. I mean, if we could get 3 stations, it was a big day. All right. Then we had cable kind of come into the mix. I would say when I was quite young, but it started to come into the mix. Not very prevalent. Not everybody that had it. And then cable came to dominate the television consumption experience. And then once we got into smartphones here and streaming services over the last 10 to 15 years or so, just as fragmented it significantly. So there are all kinds of ways to consume various types of entertainment. We talk about that a lot here on Dollars and Cents because it's so part and parcel to how the consumer spends. Meaning the consumer, if they're not spending on, let's say, more traditional cable services, how many streaming services do they have? Maybe a whole lot, maybe not too many at all. Maybe they're finding other free sources, perhaps even through their smartphones, where they're not watching television at all or very little actual television consumption because they're consuming it through their smartphone through other sources. Very, very interesting. So when we're looking at, what YouTube is saying here, or what I mentioned to you that YouTube TV is saying here about how they're changing specifically increasing the subscriber cost, or what it costs to subscribe to the base package there for YouTube TV. Find that very interesting because now when you're getting up in there in the $83 range, now you're back up to where more traditional cable services are priced. And that was one of the, let's call it, sell points as streaming services that really began to gain steam, is that, well, it's not nearly as expensive as your traditional cable provider. I don't know about you, but if you take a look at some of these streaming services, including now YouTube TV, they're right up there. Very interesting. And even if you have one, say, is only $5, $10, or $15 a month, okay, well, how many of those do you have? 4, 5, more? Well, you're right up there, $70, $80, $90, $100 a month, which may or may not have been what you were paying for traditional cable. This is not an argument for traditional cable services. I'm just remarking that, part of the sell point, or part of the reasons of attraction that folks were moving in that direction when it came to streaming services was that they could segment a little bit what actually they were consuming, and in exchange for that, it didn't cost them as much. And at least insofar as the consuming public is concerned, it seems like we're bending a little bit more back into that direction where the cost is pretty much the same as what more traditional cable services have been providing. So it's very interesting to see that. It's going to continue to evolve. I don't think we're in any way in a more stasis kind of space where, okay, this is the way that it's going to be for fill in the blank years. I think this is a continuously evolving kind of space where we don't really know where the public is going to land. And when I say land, I don't mean in permanency, but I mean in more of a stasis or more of a rhythm, kind of like we had with cable television here about 25, 30 years ago, where they really owned the market, and really not the case at this point. So it's going to be interesting to see. Comes down to the consumer, how they spend. That's how we move as an economy. You hear me say that all the time. And we're going to talk about that more here in the fourth quarter. But before then, we're going to hear from our sponsors. Appreciate you hanging with us here on Dollars and Cents, here on WSIC.
Keep it right here. Dollars and Cents with certified financial planner Joshua Dobi will return shortly on 105.9, 100.7 WSIC.
Oh boy, what a difference a day makes. The cold is back again. The dry weather is back too. Plenty of sunshine, high temperatures in the upper 40s, still with a bit of a breeze for the afternoon. Under a clear sky, we'll go back down into the upper 20s to near 30 again overnight and get into the low 50s for our Friday with a partly cloudy sky. We'll stay chilly and dry through Saturday, tracking our next chance for rain again by Sunday. That's your forecast from the WSIC Weather Center. I'm meteorologist Chase Myers.
Here is your WSIC community calendar. Embrace the magic of the season at a classic Christmas in Mooresville on Friday from 5 to 9 p.m. in the heart of downtown. Traditional holiday activities such as ice skating, horse-drawn wagon rides, Santa visits, food vendors, warm beverages, and carolers are all part of the festivities. A classic Christmas in Mooresville promises a nostalgic and heartwarming experience for the whole family this Friday in downtown. Join the Gingerbread House Workshop this Saturday in downtown Statesville. Fun Christmas activities for kids take place at 10:30 a.m., 11:15, and noon at the Watering Hole on West Broad Street. All supplies are provided and fun for all ages. Registration is required. Visit Gingerbread Workshop for Kids on Facebook for details. The Town of Troutman Jingle Run 5K takes place on Sunday. The race will run through the Town of Troutman starting at the Town Hall. Register at runsignup.com and we will see you Sunday in Troutman for the Jingle Run 5K. Trivia is back at Micaiah's in Mooresville on Tuesday, December 17th. Join me, Patrick Reynolds, host of The Home Ad Show, and Joe Berg, host of The Scoreboard, as we test your trivia knowledge with a fun game and prizes for the winners. Call your friends, form your team, or play solo. We'll see you at Micaiah's in Mooresville on Tuesday, December 17th for trivia with the WSIC on-air crew. Speedway Christmas at Charlotte Motor Speedway is happening now through Sunday, January 5th. The light show features more than 5 million lights synchronized to music on a 4-mile course through the oval, pit road, and infield. Plus drive-in movies on the gigantic Speedway TV, as well as a festive Christmas village. Speedway Christmas tickets and information are available at charlottemotorspeedway.com. To keep up with all the events happening around the community and much more, including amazing local deals, download the WSIC News app today.
Dollars and Cents continues now. Here's your host, certified financial planner Joshua Dobi on 105.9 100.7 WSIC.
Hello and welcome back to Dollars and Cents presented by North Main Financial. I'm your host, Joshua Dobi. Thank you so much for hanging with us here. Fourth quarter of today's show, Football Reference. We're on the sprint here, folks. If you are one who is a 9-to-5er, you got 11 minutes and 53 seconds till you hit that 5 o'clock bell. And I appreciate so much you hanging with us here as we're talking about all things economic and financial. And as we were going to break there, we were talking some of the academic a little bit. We were also talking about companies. You know, we were talking about interest rates, about where they are. Talked about some of the companies that announced Dobi kind of missed the mark. No relationship to me. I told you that already. That's YouTube TV as well. Announcing a price increase, and not just, a price increase, but a notable increase percentage-wise. If you're one who subscribes to YouTube TV, make sure you take a look at your email or take a look at some of the notices you may be getting from them. Pretty notable price increase, about 15%-ish, right around there in terms of a price increase over the next couple of months for their base package. Thought that was interesting. And then the whole conversation about how we, the consuming public, take in our entertainment sources, whether that's from traditional cable, whether that's live performance, whether that's through streaming services, whether it's through other services through our smartphone. Very, very important. A, because it shows how we're spending as the consumer public, but also the evolution of how entertainment is delivered to us. Very, very different. I mean, I shared with you, I know it shows my age. I'm not ashamed of that. The growing up, especially early on in my experience on things, it was rabbit ears on top of black and white 13-inch television. Now, I know a lot of you who are listening to me are nodding your heads because you know what I'm talking about. And boy, if you could get 3 clear stations, it was a big day. We hoped for 1 clear station. The other 2 were usually pretty snowy in terms of the picture on that 13-inch black and white that we are all crouched around to watch. But then we got cable, and now we got streaming, and obviously we have movie sources, whether we're talking about Netflix, all this. So lots of options here. So very, very interesting to see as we evolve in our consumption of entertainment and where the consumer spends, and that's what's most important. All right, let's keep going here. Fourth quarter, we're going to get into the markets, I promise you. Hang with me here, but a couple of items before we do. Very, very interesting, I think, and this is just with regards to the number of dollars involved. So not talking about publicly traded companies here. This is definitely economic. You heard us talk about this on a couple of different occasions here on Dollars and Cents. And that has to do with the rule that the NFL, so the National Football League, the rule that the NFL has allowed here, that is in place, it is now allowed, where teams are able to sell up to 10% of the football team's value. So the owner or the owner group is able to sell up to 10% of the team to outside private equity investors who are not a part of the actual ownership and governance of the team itself. So I know that that's getting a little wordy there. So let me just clarify very simply. They're able to sell off a portion of the team for financial reasons, meaning that they're not bringing in additional owners, people who will make decisions, folks who have votes with regards to what happens to the team. It's just an opportunity for the current ownership group to sell off a portion, liquefy a little bit of their portion in order to produce some liquid cash. And then also for other folks to be a participant financially in the team, but not in terms of the governance or the voting aspect of things, which is a very closed group when it comes to the NFL. I'm saying all of that to say, just saw here over the course of the last week, Philadelphia Eagles sold off 10% or close to 10% of the ownership group there. So sold off close to 10% of the team, again, for financial reasons only, not the governance, just for financial reasons only, valuing the Philadelphia Eagles at over $8.5 billion. $8.5 billion for the Philadelphia Eagles. Now they're having a good year. If you're a Philadelphia fan, I'm happy for you. I mean, it's been a good, not just this year, but a good couple of years for the Philadelphia Eagles. $8.5 billion. That's not even the most valuable one. No, you got to look down there in Arlington, Texas. Yeah, Dallas, Texas. $10 billion in valuation, over $10 billion for the Dallas Cowboys. It's amazing, folks. David Tepper here in Carolinas. He bought the Carolina Panthers here several years ago. I'm not going to even name the number of years, several years ago. He paid $2.2 billion for the Carolina Panthers. I don't know what the valuation is at this time, but it is more than $2.2 billion, and he's made a buck. Tepper has made a buck on his purchase here of the Carolina Panthers. Amazing stuff. Amazing, and we're getting a little bit more clarity into the fair market value of these NFL organizations because of this now a rule that they've allowed where they can sell a portion of the team for financial reasons to these outside outside investor groups, and so very, very interesting to see that. Amazing, golly, you talk about money, amazing kinds of money in the NFL, and that's true with a lot of other sports organizations. We've talked about international soccer, which is the true football out there, but looking at American football, amazing the kinds of valuations that are being given to these NFL teams now, and people still willing to buy up. People still willing to buy into the higher valuations on that end of things. All right, let's keep going here. I'm going to talk markets. I'm going to bring in a couple of other items here as well, just a little bit anecdotally, because, it's the holidays, and so we're going to talk, probably a little bit more food here. But let's talk markets real quick. Amazing stuff, folks. Amazing stuff. Post-election, there definitely was a surge in the equity end of things, and in very positive, let's call it semi-euphoric kinds of movements directly after the election. And I mentioned to you that thought it was overdone, and that has pulled back some from where we were as measured by our most popular stock indices or equity indices. But now we're kind of flatlining a little bit, and not because we haven't had positive or negative days. We've had both since the election, but not a whole lot of movement above and beyond where we are. But when you look at the returns for the year, amazing. Interesting also as we're thinking about what's going to come for next year, because the discussion, now I'm going to shift a little bit here back to the Federal Reserve, talking about interest rates, and then corollary to that with inflation. Not nearly the same kind of assumptions by the markets, specifically the futures markets, about what it's going to look like next year for interest rates. And that's very interesting. So I mentioned to you just here in a previous segment that Federal Reserve's meeting next week, interest rate cut very likely going to be announced on Wednesday the 18th of quarter of a percentage point or 25 basis points, largely widely expected by the markets. Now, though, when we're looking at 2025, not nearly the same kind of expectation that we're going to have this multitude of rate cuts like even 3 or 4 months ago that there was expectation would be in 2025. So what does that mean? Why did that shift? What has shifted overall? Well, a number of things. You know this. Never binary when it comes to large macroeconomic things. A number of variables in the algorithm, and very, very important to keep them all in mind. But a couple of big ones, a couple of big variables in that algorithm, which have definitely shifted. Looking at where inflation is right now and where inflation is expected to be in 2025 has definitely shifted. I'm not saying that we're going to get back to where we were a couple of years ago where we had 7, 8, 9% inflation on an annualized basis. Not saying we're getting back there, but we're definitely not going in the direction of 2%, which was the stated mandate for a significant amount of time. It's become a lot quieter now, interesting, but was the stated mandate by the Federal Reserve for a long time as their target for cutting of interest rates to get back down to 2%. We're not getting close there. We're more in the 3.5-ish range right now, probably going to stay there. And so let's say 3.5. So I won't be quite that sharp in looking at the number there. Let's say 3.5 on the inflation end of things. And it doesn't look like we're going to go any lower right now. And it looks like interest rates are going to stay a little bit higher than anticipated, meaning that the Federal Reserve is not going to be making nearly as many cuts, maybe none at all next year. I'm not saying that's going to happen because we don't know until we know. But looking at where the futures markets are anticipating, I wouldn't be surprised to see very few to zero interest rate cuts next year, 2025. Now, that's going to change the markets. When I say change the market, I'm not talking about 180 degrees. I'm talking about a tilt of difference from what even was expected here 3-4 months ago. Now, what's that mean, positively and negatively? Negatively, it means you're going to have higher interest rates, meaning that the cost of capital is going to stay higher than was expected here several months ago, if this indeed happens to be the case. When I say cost of capital, I'm looking at higher mortgage rates, higher interest rates on auto loans, lines of credit, capital expense loans, etc. So that's important to keep in mind. And that definitely is going to have an impact on how companies spend and how individuals spend. Does that mean it's going to slow down, crash? I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying that that's going to have an effect on the number of folks who are going to be actively taking out new lines of credit, new mortgages, new auto loans. Now, on the other side of things, as a saver, it means you're going to have higher interest rates than probably were expected here just several months ago, meaning that somewhere in the 3.5, 4.5 range, especially when you're looking at the short end of the yield curve, meaning those with short maturities, 2 to 5 years, might be able to stay in that 4.2, 4.4 range of things, meaning 4.2 to 4.4% per year end of things. That'll be interesting. That will incentivize a certain number of folks, in my opinion, that will incentivize a certain number of folks to keep their money in the fixed income end. If it gets lower than that, then what we generally see in my end of the world is money moving out of fixed income, not wholesale, but more money moving out of fixed income and more into equities. Now, does that mean that equities are going to be weak next year? No. Actually, there's probably, though, going to be an environment where those companies which have higher margins are going to do well. Those companies with thinner margins are going to struggle a little bit more. Now, that's just because of the cost of capital, meaning that cost of capital eats into margins. You have thin margins. Those thin ones get thinner. Those companies struggle more. You have higher margins. That tends to be a space where you have opportunity to thrive. So we're going to be watching that very closely for all the obvious reasons here. And that's not me saying that 2025 is going to be negative or that we're going to be crashing or that there's going to be, anything's possible. First of all, let's say that very clearly. But when we're looking at what we anticipate at this point, it's going to be a little bit of a different macro environment than what we anticipated here even a couple of months ago. So it's going to be very, very important to watch things, watch companies, watch industries which do well in that kind of space. I'm not saying that technology is going to go up again, but technology tends to do well in that kind of space. Financials probably going to do well because the margins are a little bit higher. We're going to be watching those kinds of things coming into 2025. Not a recommendation to buy, sell, or hold anything, but just the kind of things that we're watching and going to keep in mind. All right, well, we're rapidly approaching the end of our time together here, folks. Thank you so much for hanging with us here on Dollars and Cents. I appreciate your time and attention as we're looking at all things economic and financial. Tune in with us next week here on WSIC as we return here on Dollars and Cents.
Serving you better than ever before. WSIC, Statesville, W290D.